Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Dr. Daniel right here, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you the expense of running a 12,000 capacity farm. Currently it's 12,000. Actually last month it was about 9,500. Now this is not going to be very representative because I'm just going to be sharing with you the cost or how much money you actually spend to run a farm like this. Yeah, to run something as big as 12,000 birds, which is what I'm currently running. And the whole point of this video is simply to give you a perspective of how something can actually come from something really small to something big. Because personally, I started with just 800 chickens. I remember at that time, I think I'll leave a link to one of those videos right here so you can check it out, yeah? Because I believe it's still on the channel. About how much profit I was making. I believe the very first video I made, I think there's months where I would make profit of like $100. I think even less than $100, yeah? There are months where I would make losses, but I would make $100 and I've really celebrated. Yeah, I just made $100 on the farm. It's quite crazy, yeah? And I think the whole farm would probably make like less than $1,000 in terms of like actual sales. Forget about profit. Sales was less than $1,000 in the month, and quickly like that the farm has been able to scale up to 12,000 birds right now. I'm hoping that by the end of the year we shall have gotten to 20,000 birds, hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe 17,000, maybe 20,000 birds by the end of the year, but that's the goal. And I mean, this is not a story of how one can become rich or how big a farm can get. Yeah, this is not a story of how big a farm can get, because in reality there are very many farms that are bigger than my farm. Even in my own country in Uganda, so many poultry farms. So I imagine sometimes a lot of people are sitting there outside there and they're watching my channel. I mean, maybe someone has 20,000, 50,000 birds, 100,000 birds, and they're thinking, why is this guy even over talking? Yes, few birds, yeah. And I really don't care about that. It's not a story of how big a farm is, but a story of anything is possible. A story of you can start small and get big, because personally that's what happened for me. Yeah, when I was starting, I didn't have this land where I'm seated. You guys can see this very beautiful shed where I'm sitting. I love it, very, very beautiful. Yeah, but I didn't start here. Yeah? I certainly did start here. I didn't start when I had all this stuff, but it's a story of possibilities. Yeah, what can be done. And I just want to let you understand and know that even for you right there, it's actually possible for you to start small and get big and grow right here. Yeah, so I'll just go through the expenses and also try to explain some of these expenses to you so that you guys can understand the different costs involved. I'm going to be giving you guys figures for last month, which is March, and Feb, so that you can make comparisons. And I'll also try to explain the differences in the figures right there, because they're not consistent every month. I mean, they keep changing. So we'll start with feeds. I think feeds are like the biggest percentage of the expenses, yeah? Because for example, in March, the whole farm, I spent about $14,400. $14,400 on the entire farm expenses. But of that, 12,760 was on feed. You can imagine, out of 14,400, 12,760 was on feed. That's a very big percentage. I mean, we'll work out what the percentage is and just place it on the screen, but it's a very big percentage. And for Feb, the farm spent $19,000, and of the 19,000, 15,950, almost 16,000 again was feed. That just shows you how big a percentage that running the farm is actually dependent on the feed, yeah? So currently, again, the cost of feed is much higher. So probably if it was like last year, maybe in September or October, that would have been a much smaller percentage or a much smaller number. Because for example, in Ugandan shillings, the cost of maize right now is like 1,300. Now I didn't buy it at 1,300, but it's 1,300, and last year at the same time I was paying like 800 or 900. Yeah, so significantly much lower, but still, it's still a very big percentage. So when it does come to the cost of the feed, what exactly are we talking about? So I'm talking about things like the maize, which I mainly use. Yeah, so I used to grow maize once in a while on the farm, but I noticed that, I mean, growing maize just doesn't make sense. Yeah, it really doesn't make sense, because I mean, you get to save so little. Yeah, so for me, I found out that it just makes more sense for me to buy maize when the price is down, and I just keep utilizing when the price is high. So I just save money, and when the price comes down, I try to buy as much as possible, store it to utilize much later. That's what's happening on the farm. So maize bran, so the limestone, which I use on the farm, the limestone is the calcium source on the farm. So I've been using a concentrate on this farm, and the concentrate mainly has like the protein, which is usually soya bean, and then it will have like some minerals, vitamins, and the small tiny amino acids that the birds need. Now, because the farm has gotten to a bigger capacity and I'm currently doing 12,000 birds, I'm going to be changing away from concentrate to now using a premix, which is a much smaller volume. So I'll give you a quick example. When I was using a concentrate, the concentrate would take up 20% of the feed. I mean, if I'm mixing 1 ton, the concentrate is literally 200 kilos. But currently, I'm going to be using a premix, which is literally just 5% of the feed. So what that means is that if I'm mixing a ton, it's only 50 kilos. And I mean, that it has the amino acids and things like that. I mean, smaller things, and I don't have to use so much of the protein. That's going to save me a lot more money. And of course, that means I'm going to have to buy things like soya cake and sunflower cake and mill them myself on the farm. But it's significantly going to bring my price down. Yeah, so it's going to bring my cost down in terms of feed by about $1,700. So for example, if my cost last month was $12,750, then it would have been 11,000. Yeah, and that's a significant percentage. So again, the feed is the biggest percentage of the cost. Yeah. Then the other cost that I did have is food for the farm. So last month, I spent about $147 on food for the guys on the farm. And then the month before, it was $378. Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes the figures are skewed a bit because sometimes I like buy the food and keep it for a really long time before I have to buy again. Sometimes, I mean, it's a short time. So, but I think I spend about, maybe $200 or so. $150 or $200 on feed every month for the guys. Yeah. Another cost is the bills. Yeah. So what are the kinds of bills that I spend on the farm? So electricity is one of them. Water used to be one of them. And I mean, both the Feb and the March expenses actually had a water bill, because these are water bills I'd been paying from behind. And these water bills were actually quite significant. I would spend like between $150 and $200 a month on water. That's really, really crazy. Yeah, but now that I have a borehole, that's a bill I don't have to spend on. I still have to spend on electricity though, but that's a significantly lower bill compared to the water. So things like electricity, things like water, things like food for the dogs, yeah, I just consider that like normal running bills for the month, because I have dogs that act as security for me on the farm. Things like repairs of like the bicycle. If we do have bicycles around that we occasionally use. I mean, small tiny bills, yeah? So that for the month of March was actually $204. It's quite a lot. And then for the month of Feb, it was only $26. So that varies very greatly because, for example, in March, I paid a big percentage of the water bill that was being demanded the month before. So that's why it got to $204. But in Feb, I didn't pay any water bill. So I believe that's why it was just $26. Then another one of the expenses for the farm is fuel. So I have a tricycle that I personally utilize. I don't ride it myself, for someone who rides it, but we utilize it to go and pick the eggs from the farm and deliver them to clients, in the field and things like that, take them to the shop, occasionally carry some feed over. When I buy feed, sometimes the tuk-tuk brings the feed. A tuk-tuk is a tricycle, yeah? Maybe carrying water, maybe if the upper farm doesn't have water, we'll take it with the tricycle. So that for the month of March, its fuel bill was $82, and for the month of Feb was $109. Not so much, honestly, not so much, yeah? Then another one is general equipment. So what is general equipment? General equipment is like things that we use on the farm consistently, like physical things that we have to buy and utilize on the farm. So things like, brooms, overalls, steel wire. So we use steel wire to clean eggs, because sometimes they come with chicken poop. So we just use it to scrub it so that the eggs are not dirty by the time we deliver them. Feeders, if I'm buying wooden feeders or anything like that. Any new things that I have to buy around on the farm, maybe hose, maybe spades, maybe it's a wheelbarrow. All that goes into general equipment that we use on the farm, yeah? So for the month of March, general equipment, we spent $220, and for the month of Feb, it was only $75. So again, it's a very small percentage. And the reason I'm sharing all these things is that a lot of times when you're starting out and you're starting a farm and you want to run a farm, it's quite easy for you to, I would say, underestimate or ignore particular expenses. But you actually notice that they become quite something big, because, for example, you've seen that in Feb we spent, $200 and something on this equipment. Things that, you might never explain or think about. Yeah. So I want you to just understand that, there are hidden costs that are probably beyond what you would usually know or imagine would be a running cost on the farm. Another one is medicines. Medicines are the things that again we utilize on the farm. Yeah, so medicines includes disinfectants, antibiotics if they are given, multivitamins, and then vaccines. Yeah, and then things like rat poison. Yeah, because currently I get like rat poison and utilize them to, you know, kill rats around the farm. Rodents were really disturbing me before. So all that goes into medicines, and that changes because sometimes I'll buy, for example, vitamins that will take me 4 months and I'll pay quite an amount of money for them, and then I'll go a few months without buying anything. Yeah, and so because of that, for example, in March, we actually didn't spend anything on medicines. Interesting. In March, we didn't spend anything on medicines. And you might wonder why. Like, don't you vaccinate sometimes? So the way I do it is that I have a deal with the vet shop where I get the vaccines from. And I can pick vaccines for like a month or 2 months or even 3 months, and then I pay at once. For example, the vaccines that I utilized in March, I paid in April. So in March, I actually didn't spend anything on medicines. So whether it's vaccines, antibiotics, disinfectant or what, all those things I already did have on the farm. But in Feb, I spent $574 on medicines. Quite a big amount of money, yeah? $574 on medicines in Feb. So then after the medicines, the next expense is rent. So what is rent? So I pay rent for an outlet. I have an outlet where I sell my eggs from. So it's another expense for which I have to pay. I do that because I don't want to have people coming and picking eggs from the farm. I also do deliveries to clients, but I don't want people to come over to the farm to pick eggs. It would really cause a lot of chaos and a lot of problems for me. Yeah. So to simply avoid that problem, I just make sure that, you know, I take the eggs to the outlet and things like that. So it's not a very big expense. So for example, in Feb it was $41, and in March they increased it to $54. So $54, that's the maximum that I pay. Yeah. So another one is maintenance for the tuk-tuk, yeah, the motorcycle, yeah, because every month it needs maintenance, servicing, maybe a part breaks down and things like that. I've already talked about it, yeah, in terms of the fuel. So in Feb, I paid $35 for its maintenance, and in March it was $70. I think in March, like, the engine got a problem, so they had to like fix it like seriously. So that's why it spent way more, but it's usually, I mean, around $30, less than that, or even less than $30. Then another expense is the salaries. Yeah, I think that's like the last expense. It's the salaries that I do spend on the farm. So I have maybe 8 or 9 workers on the farm. And a lot of them, when they come in, they start on a base level salary, and based on their performance, their salary keeps increasing. Yeah. So in terms of salaries, in March, I paid $857, and in Feb, it was $820. Yeah. So I mean, the prices keep changing, the figures keep going up and down, they keep going up and down. But I mean, for example, salaries, they can only go up because the farm is expanding and things like that. So again, you can see the kinds of expenses that, you know, we do have to spend on the farm. There are quite a number of things that you have to spend on, but what you need to understand is that the biggest expense is feed. It's feed, and if you can find a way of bringing the feed expense as low as possible, your farm gets really profitable. The profitability of my farm currently has been ranging between like 20 and 38%. It's quite interesting how big it varies. So if the price of the feed really goes up, it will come down to like 20%. And then if the price of feed comes down, it will go up to like 38 or even 40%. Yeah, so it's a really healthy percentage. Yeah, it's a healthy percentage. But also, I don't take a lot of money out of the business. I don't take a lot of money out of the farm. Most of the money that I make from the farm, I actually put it back into the farm to try and expand, because like I've said, it's a story of what's possible. It's not really a story of how big a farm can get. Because like I've said, people have 100,000, 500,000, even 1 million birds. My goal is not to get to 1 million birds. Well, it's to grow as big as possible. But the biggest thing is to understand that you can start from really small when you don't know anyone. You don't need to know anyone for you to actually grow and become a really big farmer. I hope you have enjoyed the video. Now, this is just a sneak peek of what I actually do have in the Farm Up Academy, which is actually a very beautiful course that I've personally put together with a lot of passion, that has all the information you require for you to start and grow a profitable poultry farm. This is all the information you require, whether it's planning, whether it's managing the farm, whether it is budgeting, whether it is, doing the day-to-day management, activities involved in the farm. There's checklists there, everything that you will ever require to start and grow your farm. So I'll leave a link in the description to the Farm Up Academy. You can check it out. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, smash the notification bell. Catch you very soon with another video. Lots of love. Bye-bye.